I handed my husband my family business to save him. 6 weeks later, my key stopped opening the office door. The sign outside still had my last name on it. But on paper, the business belonged to his mother. And the worst part was that my husband looked me in the eyes like I was the one who had caused it. I was 38 when everything started falling apart. I lived in Columbus, Ohio, and I ran a small family bakery and catering business. It was called Miller's Kitchen after my father. He had opened it when I was still in high school. It was not some glamorous company. There were no glass offices, investors, or fancy cars. But it was ours. It smelled like cinnamon, coffee, fresh bread, and childhood. When my father died, he left the bakery to me. I still remember standing by the back door after his funeral. I was wearing a black dress, holding his old brass key in my hand. My mother looked at me and said, "Your father wanted this to stay with you." And I promised myself it would. My husband, Mark, was supportive at first. He helped with deliveries, carried boxes, talked to customers, and fixed things when they broke. People liked him because he had that easy smile, the kind that made everyone feel like an old friend. I thought I was lucky. I thought I had married a man who respected what my father built. Then Mark made a mistake that dragged both of us down. He invested money in his friend's auto repair shop. He did not tell me. He did not ask me. He just took out a loan, signed a personal guarantee, and convinced himself it would all work out. 9 months later, the shop closed. His friend disappeared, and Mark was left with $87,000 of debt. I did not hear it from him. I found the bank letter in our mailbox. There was a red warning printed across the envelope. Inside were cold words about missed payments, legal action, and possible collection. When I put the letter in front of him on the kitchen table, his face went pale. "I wanted to fix it before you found out," he said. That sentence should have scared me. But back then, all I heard was fear. He did not look like a liar sitting across from me. He looked like a terrified man being crushed by his own bad decisions. And I was foolish enough to believe that love meant pulling him out before he went under. Mark said there was a way to fix it. He needed a stable ownership stake in an active business, just so the bank would agree to restructure the debt. Not forever. Not as a gift. Just temporarily. He kept using that word. Temporarily. "Only on paper, Lauren," he said. "The business is still yours." Our family attorney was on vacation that week. Mark suggested another lawyer, someone his mother knew. I did not like that. Something inside me tightened the second he said it. But then he reached across the table and took my hand. "I could lose everything," he whispered. "We could lose the house. I'm just asking you to help me get through this." I looked at him and did not think about contracts. I thought about our marriage. 10 years together. The way he held me at my father's funeral. The way he promised to protect me when I felt like I had nobody left. So I agreed. 2 days later, we sat in a small lawyer's office near a strip mall. A cheap clock ticked too loudly on the wall. Thick documents sat on the desk between us. Dry, confusing, and full of words I barely understood. The lawyer spoke quickly. Mark kept nodding. I asked if I could get my share back later. "Of course," the lawyer said. "This is a family arrangement. There's nothing unusual here." Mark squeezed my hand under the table. And I signed. That night, he brought home dinner from our favorite Mexican restaurant. He held me longer than usual. He called me his savior. He said he would never forget what I had done for him. And he did not forget. He just used it against me. The first strange sign came 1 week later. Mark started bringing in the mail before I could see it. Before that, he never cared about mail. Bills, checks, client letters, supplier notices, I handled all of it. But suddenly, envelopes disappeared before I got home. Then he changed the password to the business bank account. He said the bank had requested a security update. Then his mother, Patricia, started showing up at the bakery. She had never liked the place. She said it smelled like old habits and that my father never knew how to think bigger. But now she came in wearing expensive beige coats, looking around the kitchen, and asking my employees questions. "I'm just helping Mark get organized," she told me one morning. It was not the word helping that hit me. It was Mark. As if this place already belonged to him. I asked Mark why his mother was getting involved. He laughed softly. "You're stressed, Lauren. She's just trying to help. But 2 days later, our manager, Sarah, pulled me aside near the walk-in fridge. Her voice was low. Lauren, Patricia told me all schedules have to go through her now. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. She has no authority to do that, I said. Sarah looked at me like she was afraid to answer. She said she does. That evening, I did not go home after closing. I stayed in my father's old office, turned on his computer, and opened the state business registry. I only needed to check the company documents. Just to calm myself down. Just to prove I was being paranoid. The website loaded slowly. My hands were cold. I typed in the business name, the address, and the registration number. The company profile appeared on the screen. I saw Mark's name first. Then I saw another name below it. Patricia Reynolds, managing member. I read it 3 times. Then I saw the filing date. The change had been made 9 days after I signed those papers. That was when the back office door creaked open behind me. I turned around fast. Mark was standing in the doorway, and in his hand was my father's old brass key. Mark did not look surprised to find me there. That was the first thing I noticed. He stood in the doorway of my father's office, holding that old brass key between 2 fingers. Not gripping it. Not hiding it. Just holding it like it already belonged to him. "Why do you have that?" I asked. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted it to. He glanced at the computer screen behind me, then back at my face. "You shouldn't be digging through state records at midnight, Lauren." That sentence chilled me more than a confession would have. Because he was not asking what I had found. He already knew. I stood up from the desk slowly because my knees felt weak. "Your mother is listed as managing member," I said. "Why?" Mark sighed like I was being difficult. Like I had burned dinner or forgotten to pay a bill. Not like I had just found his mother's name attached to my father's business. "It's temporary," he said. There was that word again. Temporary. Only this time, it sounded dirty. "You said you needed your name on paper for the bank," I said. "You never said anything about Patricia." "She has better credit," he said. "Better assets. Better leverage." He spoke calmly, like this was just business. I stared at him, waiting for panic to appear. Shame. Guilt. Anything that looked like the man I thought I had married. But his face stayed steady. That was when I understood something awful. This was not a mistake he made under pressure. This was a plan he had already accepted. Maybe even helped create. I walked past him and reached for the key in his hand. He pulled it back before I could touch it. "Don't make this ugly," he said. I felt something snap inside my chest. "Ugly?" I whispered. "Mark, this was my father's place. And I'm trying to keep it alive," he said. Those words hit me hard because they sounded almost noble. That was Mark's gift. He could wrap betrayal in language so soft, you almost apologized for bleeding. I grabbed my purse and left without another word. Outside, the parking lot was dark and wet from earlier rain. The bakery sign buzzed above the door. Miller's Kitchen glowed in faded white letters, the same letters my dad had paid for in cash 20 years earlier. I sat in my car and locked the doors. Then I cried so hard I could barely breathe. Not because I had lost everything yet. Because I had helped them take it. The next morning, I called our family attorney, Mr. Halpern, before sunrise. He had known my father for years. He had reviewed every lease, every vendor contract, every small business tax issue since I was 19. His assistant told me he was still away. I said it was urgent. She paused. Then she gave me his emergency email. I sent him everything I had. The filing record. The dates. The lawyer's name. A photo of the documents I had signed, or at least the few pages Mark had left in our kitchen drawer. Then I went to the bakery. Patricia was already there. She was standing behind the counter, talking to one of my regular customers, Mrs. Alvarez. Patricia wore pearl earrings and that same beige coat, even though the kitchen was warm. When she saw me, she smiled. Not a warm smile. A winning smile. "Lauren," she said. "We need to talk about your role." My stomach dropped. "My role?" She folded her hands on the counter. "With everything happening, Mark and I think it's best if you focus on baking and customer relationships. The financial side has become too complicated." I looked around the bakery. Sarah was pretending to wipe the pastry case. Two part-time workers were silent near the espresso machine. Everyone could feel it. Something had shifted, and nobody knew where to stand. "This is my business," I said. Patricia tilted her head. Emotionally, yes. That one word almost knocked the air out of me. Emotionally. As if my father's work, my years, my payroll stress, my 16-hour days, and every holiday I had missed were just feelings. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. "You sign documents, Lauren. Adults are responsible for what they sign." I wanted to scream. But the customer bell rang. 3 people walked in for morning coffee, and I had to stand there with my face burning while Patricia greeted them like she owned the place. By noon, Mark still had not answered my calls. By 3, the business bank account locked me out completely. By 5, our supplier for flour called and asked why future invoices had to be sent to Patricia Reynolds. That was when fear turned into something harder. I went home, opened every drawer, every folder, every cabinet. The folder with my father's original ownership papers was gone. So was the small fireproof box where I kept the old deed, insurance papers, and his handwritten recipes. I stood in the hallway, surrounded by open drawers, when my phone buzzed. It was an email from Mr. Halpern. Only one sentence appeared on my screen. "Lauren, do not sign anything else and do not confront Mark alone." Before I could even process that warning, another message came in. This one was from an unknown number. It had no words, just a photo. A photo of Mark and Patricia sitting across from a commercial real estate agent. And spread on the table between them was a listing packet for Miller's Kitchen. I stared at that photo until the screen went dim. At first, my mind refused to understand it. A real estate agent. A listing packet. My husband's mother sitting there like a buyer. And Mark leaning forward like he was negotiating a future without me. I tapped the photo to make it bigger. The packet had my bakery's name on it. Miller's Kitchen, commercial property, and business opportunity. Not a loan document. Not a temporary restructuring file. A sale packet. My hands started shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I called the unknown number, but nobody answered. Then I texted, "Who is this?" 3 gray dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then one message came through. "Ask your husband what he promised his mother." I read that sentence standing in my hallway, surrounded by open drawers and missing documents. For a moment, everything went quiet. Even the refrigerator hum sounded far away. I wanted to call Mark and scream. Instead, I remembered Mr. Halpern's warning. Do not confront Mark alone. So I waited. That was one of the hardest things I ever did. I sat at the kitchen table until after 9, listening for his car. Every minute made me more angry, then more afraid, then angry again. When Mark finally came home, he looked exhausted, but not guilty. He loosened his tie, dropped his keys in the bowl, and looked at the open drawers behind me. "You went through the house?" he asked. I held up my phone. "Are you selling my father's business?" For 1 second, his face changed. It was small. Almost nothing. But I saw it. The mask slipped. Then he recovered. "Where did you get that?" "Not that's not true. Not I would never do that. Just where did you get that?" I stood up slowly. "You told me this was temporary." "It is," he said. "Then why is there a sale packet?" He rubbed his forehead like I was giving him a headache. "Because Patricia wanted to know what it was worth." "Why?" "Because she put herself at risk for us." I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "For us." His jaw tightened. "She helped save the business." "No, Mark. I saved you." The room went still after that. He looked at me differently then. Colder. Less like a husband, more like someone measuring how much damage I could do. "You don't understand how bad things were," he said. "Because you lied to me. I protected you." That word made my stomach twist. Protected. He had hidden debt from me. Hidden documents. Hidden his mother's control. And now he was using the language of love like a blanket over a crime. I wanted to keep my voice steady. But it cracked anyway. "Where are my father's papers?" Mark looked away. That was enough. "Where are they?" I asked again. "They're safe." "With your mother?" He did not answer. I grabbed my coat from the chair. "Lauren, don't do this," he said. I turned around. "Don't do what?" Ask questions about my own life. His face hardened. You signed those documents. You need to accept that. And there it was. The sentence Patricia had already used. Adults are responsible for what they sign. I drove to a hotel that night. Not because I had a plan. Because I finally understood that my own house was not safe for me anymore. Not physically unsafe, maybe, but emotionally, legally, financially. Every drawer, every password, every conversation had become a trap. The next morning, Mr. Halpern called me himself. His voice was calm, but I could hear tension underneath it. "Lauren, I reviewed the filings," he said. "What you signed was not a simple temporary transfer." I closed my eyes. He continued. "It gave Mark authority to assign management rights. Then those rights were transferred to his mother." My throat tightened. "Can they sell it?" There was a pause. "A sale would be difficult without more paperwork. But they may be trying to pressure you into signing it." I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the ugly carpet. "What do I do?" "Document everything," he said. "Emails, texts, bank access, employee statements. And Lauren." His voice lowered. "Find out who sent that photo." I went to the bakery after sunrise. For the first time in years, I parked across the street instead of behind the building. I watched the front door. I watched Patricia arrive 10 minutes later, carrying a leather folder and coffee from a place that was not ours. Then I saw Mark's truck pull in beside her car. They did not go inside right away. They stood near the back entrance, speaking closely. Patricia handed him papers. Mark hesitated. Then he signed one page against the hood of his truck. My chest went cold. I took a photo from across the street. Then my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This time, the message was shorter. "Check the storage unit on Fisher Road. Unit 214. Code, your wedding year." I stared at the message for so long my eyes burned. Unit 214. Code, your wedding year. For a few seconds, I convinced myself it had to be a trap. Maybe Mark knew about the unknown number. Maybe Patricia was trying to scare me into doing something reckless. But then I looked across the street again. Mark and his mother were still standing by his truck. Patricia was talking fast. Mark was looking down at the papers in his hand like they weighed more than paper should. Something was happening without me. Again. So I started my car and drove to Fisher Road. The storage place sat behind a tire shop and a gas station. It had a blue metal gate, security cameras, and rows of beige garage doors stretching into the distance. I had never been there before. But Mark had. The gate keypad asked for a code. My hands shook as I typed our wedding year. The gate opened. That was the moment my stomach dropped. Because strangers do not guess something like that. Someone close to us had sent that message. I drove slowly to Unit 214. The lock was not heavy or new. It was an old combination lock, the kind Mark used on his gym locker. I tried our wedding year again. It clicked open. For a second, I just stood there in the cold morning air. My breath came out in white clouds. The metal door rattled when I lifted it, and the sound echoed down the row. Inside were boxes. Not random boxes. My boxes. The fireproof case from our hallway closet sat against the back wall. Beside it were 2 plastic tubs from my father's office. One had his handwriting on the lid. Holiday Catering Records. 2014 to 2018. I pressed my hand over my mouth. They had not just taken legal documents. They had cleaned out pieces of my father. I stepped inside and turned on my phone flashlight. There were folders, old receipts, recipe binders, payroll records, insurance papers, and framed photos that used to hang near the bakery register. Then I saw a white banker's box with Patricia's name written on the side. Not mine. Not Mark's. Patricia Purchase File. I opened it. At first, the pages did not make sense. There were printed emails, draft agreements, bank letters, and handwritten notes. But slowly, the picture sharpened. Patricia had not stepped in after the debt. She had been planning this before I ever signed anything. There were emails between her and the lawyer. Dates from 2 months before Mark told me about the bank letter. Notes about asset protection, spousal pressure points, and emotional leverage after father's death. I read those words 3 times. Emotional leverage. My father's death had not been a tragedy to her. It had been an opening. Then I found a letter from a commercial bakery chain based in Cincinnati. They were interested in buying Miller's Kitchen for the location, catering contracts, and brand reputation. The offer was nearly 4 times what Mark owed. I sat down on the concrete floor. My legs simply stopped holding me. This was not about saving our house. This was not about debt. This was not even about Mark making one stupid financial mistake. This was about taking the business my father built, selling it, paying off Mark's disaster, and leaving Patricia with the profit and control. I whispered it out loud before I could stop myself. This is insanity. My voice sounded tiny inside that storage unit. Then I heard footsteps outside. I froze. They were slow at first, then closer. Gravel crunched near the door. I turned off my phone flashlight and held my breath. A shadow crossed the opening. For one terrible second, I thought it was Mark. But it was Sarah. My manager stood outside the unit, pale and shaking, holding her phone in both hands. "I'm sorry," she said. I could not speak. She stepped closer, eyes filling with tears. "I'm the one who sent the messages." My chest tightened. "Why?" Sarah looked over her shoulder, then back at me. "Because Patricia asked me to print some files yesterday. She said it was for tax cleanup. But I saw your father's name. I saw the sale packet. And then I saw my own name on a termination list." "A termination list?" Sarah nodded. "They're planning to sell, Lauren. But first they want you to look unstable. Like you abandoned operations. Like you can't manage staff anymore." The concrete floor seemed to tilt beneath me. She handed me her phone. On the screen was a photo of an email from Patricia to Mark. One line was highlighted. "If Lauren refuses to cooperate, we document emotional misconduct and remove her cleanly." I felt sick. All those moments flashed through my mind at once. Patricia correcting me in front of employees. Mark calling me stressed. The locked accounts. The missing papers. The way they kept making me feel irrational for asking normal questions. They were not just stealing from me. They were building a story where I deserved it. Sarah wiped her face with her sleeve. "There's more," she whispered. I looked at her. She swallowed hard. "Mark told Patricia you already agreed to the sale. He said you were just being emotional in public." I stood up slowly. My whole body felt cold, but my mind had become strangely clear. "Do you have proof?" Sarah nodded. "Emails. Texts. A voicemail." Before she could say more, my phone rang. Mark's name filled the screen. I did not answer. Then a text came through. "Come home now. Mom and I know where you are." I stared at Mark's text until my vision blurred. "Mom and I know where you are." Not "Are you okay?" Not "Let's talk." Not even "What are you doing there?" He said "Mom and I." Like they were the marriage now. Sarah saw my face change. "What did he say?" she asked. I turned the phone toward her. The color drained from her cheeks. "We need to leave," she whispered. But I could not move yet. Not until I took pictures of everything. Every box. Every folder. Every email printout. Every note with Patricia's handwriting. Every document that proved this was not a misunderstanding. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. For the first time in weeks, I was not asking myself whether I was overreacting. I was not wondering if I had misunderstood Mark. I was not hearing his voice in my head, telling me I was stressed. I was looking at proof. And proof has a way of waking you up. Sarah helped me photograph the files. Then she recorded a short video walking through the storage unit, showing the boxes, the labels, and the missing fireproof case from my house. When she pointed the camera at my father's recipe binders, my throat closed. Those binders had grease stains on the edges. Some pages had his handwriting in blue ink. He used to write little notes beside recipes, like "Lauren likes extra cinnamon" or "too sweet, fix later." Seeing them hidden in that storage unit did something to me. It turned my grief into anger. Not loud anger. Steady anger. The kind that makes you stop begging. We loaded the most important documents into Sarah's car. My father's binders. The ownership papers. Insurance files. The fireproof box. Anything with signatures or dates. I left Patricia's banker's box open on the floor. I wanted them to know I had seen it. As Sarah drove away first, I sat in my car and called Mr. Halpern. He answered on the second ring. Lauren. I found the documents, I said. And I found proof they planned this. He was quiet for a moment. Where are you now? Storage facility on Fisher Road. Leave immediately, he said. Do not go home. Bring everything to my office. I started the engine. At the end of the row, a black SUV turned in. Patricia's car. My stomach tightened so hard I almost couldn't breathe. She drove slowly, like she already owned the air around her. Mark was in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. When he saw my car, his head turned sharply. I pulled out before they could block me. Patricia honked once. Mark called me again. I did not answer. The gate opened, and I drove through with both hands locked on the wheel. In the rearview mirror, I saw Mark get out of the SUV and run a few steps after me. For one stupid second, my heart hurt. Because part of me still remembered the man who danced with me in our kitchen. The man who kissed my forehead at my father's hospital bed. The man who promised that my family would always be his family. Then my phone buzzed again. You're making a huge mistake. I laughed once, and it came out like a sob. No, I thought. The huge mistake was believing love required blind trust. Mr. Halpern's office was downtown, in an old brick building near the courthouse. Sarah was already there when I arrived. She had parked crookedly and was standing by her car, hugging herself against the wind. We carried the boxes inside together. Mr. Halpern looked older than I remembered, but his eyes were sharp. He did not waste time comforting me with empty words. He put on reading glasses, opened the first file, and started sorting. After 20 minutes, he leaned back in his chair. This is worse than I thought. My stomach dropped. Can I lose the bakery? He took a slow breath. They created confusion around control, but they may have overplayed it. Sarah handed him her phone. He listened to the voicemail Patricia had left her 2 nights before. Patricia's voice filled the office, smooth and cold. Sarah, I need you to document every time Lauren raises her voice, leaves early, or acts emotionally. We have to protect the business from instability. My skin went cold. I had never heard my own name sound so dangerous. Mr. Halpern stopped the recording. That helps, he said. Then Sarah opened her email and showed him the termination list. My name was not on it. That surprised me. Then Mr. Halpern pointed to a note at the bottom. Remove after signing final consent. The room went silent. Final consent. That meant they still needed something from me. Something I had not signed yet. Mr. Halpern looked at me carefully. Lauren, have they asked you to sign anything recently? I thought back. The changed passwords. The missing papers. Patricia at the counter. Mark telling me I needed to accept things. Then I remembered the envelope on our kitchen table. Mark had left it there 2 nights ago. He said it was just updated bank paperwork. I had not opened it. My phone rang again. This time, it was not Mark. It was Patricia. I let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later, the message appeared. Mr. Halpern played it on speaker. Patricia's voice was calm, almost pleasant. Lauren, sweetheart, you need to come home and sign the remaining documents tonight. If you don't, Mark will have no choice but to tell everyone what you did to the company account. My blood went cold, because I had never touched that account. But when Mr. Halpern opened his laptop and checked the bank activity, his face changed. There was a transfer made under my login. $42,000. Sent to an account I did not recognize. And the timestamp was from the night my password stopped working. For a moment, nobody in the office spoke. The bank screen showed my name, my login, my business account, and $42,000 gone. I stared at the transfer like it was written in another language. That wasn't me, I whispered. Mr. Halpern did not look away from the screen. I believe you, he said. But we need to prove it. Sarah stood beside me, pale and silent. I could feel her fear, too. Not just for me. For the bakery. For her job. For every employee who had trusted me to keep that place alive. Mr. Halpern printed the transaction record. Then he asked me one question. Where were you at that exact time? I looked at the timestamp. Tuesday night. 8:47 p.m. My stomach twisted. I was at the bakery, I said. In my father's office. Sarah straightened. She was. I texted her around then about the schedule. Mr. Halpern nodded. Good. We need cameras, phone records, and bank access logs. The words sounded practical. But inside, I felt like I was drowning. They had not only stolen control, they had made it look like I stole money. And now Patricia's voicemail made sense. She wanted me scared. She wanted me ashamed. She wanted me to sign whatever papers she put in front of me just to make the accusation disappear. That was when my phone buzzed again. A text from Mark. You need to stop fighting. Mom can make this go away. I almost laughed. Mom. Not we. Not I, Mom. I showed the message to Mr. Halpern. His mouth tightened. Do not respond. But I wanted to. I wanted to ask Mark when he stopped being my husband. I wanted to ask if there had been one exact moment, or if he had been peeling himself away from me for months. Instead, I placed the phone face down. Mr. Halpern called the bank's fraud department from his office phone. He identified himself as my attorney and requested an emergency freeze on outgoing transfers from the business account. The woman on the line asked security questions. I answered every one. Then she paused. I'm seeing a recent change to account recovery information, she said. My whole body went cold. What kind of change? I asked. The backup email and phone number were updated last week. Mr. Halpern leaned closer. To whose information? The woman would not say over the phone, but she confirmed it was not mine. I closed my eyes. Mark had not locked me out by accident. He had moved the door. By late afternoon, we had filed a fraud claim with the bank. Mr. Halpern also told me to make a police report. Not because he expected officers to solve everything that day, but because we needed a record. A paper trail. That phrase became my rope. A paper trail meant I was not crazy. It meant facts existed outside Mark's version of me. At the police station, I sat under fluorescent lights and explained my marriage to a stranger in uniform. I told him about the debt, the documents, the storage unit, the missing papers, the fake transfer. Saying it out loud made it sound impossible. But the officer kept writing. When he asked if I feared for my safety, I hesitated. Mark had never hit me. He had never shoved me. He had never raised a hand. But suddenly I saw how small my idea of danger had been. Danger was not always a fist. Sometimes it was a password changed in the dark. Sometimes it was your signature used against you. Sometimes it was a husband smiling while he erased your name. I don't know, I said. But I'm afraid of what they'll do next. He gave me a case number. I stared at it in my hand like it was something solid. That night, I did not go home again. I stayed with Sarah in her small apartment above a dentist's office. She gave me sweatpants, tea, and the couch. I barely slept. Every time a car passed outside, I sat up and listened. At 6:12 in the morning, my phone rang. Mark. I let it ring. Then came a voicemail. His voice was softer this time. Lauren, please. This has gotten out of hand. Mom is furious, but I can talk to her. Just come home. Sign the papers, and we can still be married after this. I played it twice. Not because I missed him. Because of what he said. Mom is furious, but I can talk to her. That was the real order of power. My husband had handed my father's business to his mother. Then he handed her our marriage, too. Later that morning, Mr. Halpern called. I got the draft sale documents, he said. My heart started pounding. How? Patricia's lawyer sent them to me by mistake. Or someone in his office did. He paused. Lauren, they were planning to close within 10 days. I gripped Sarah's kitchen counter. Can they? Not cleanly. Not if we move fast. I heard papers shifting. There's something else. The buyer added a condition. They want a signed statement from you confirming you voluntarily stepped away from management. My throat tightened. That was the final consent. They did not just need my signature. They needed my silence. Before I could answer, Sarah came out of the bathroom holding her phone. Her face was white. Lauren, she said. You need to see this. She turned the screen toward me. It was a post on the bakery's Facebook page. A smiling photo of Mark and Patricia stood beneath a bright caption. Exciting changes are coming to Miller's Kitchen. After Lauren's recent decision to step back for personal reasons, our family is preparing for a beautiful new chapter. I felt the room spin. Then I saw the comments. Regular customers. Friends. People who knew my father. They were all asking the same thing. Lauren, is this true? I read that Facebook post until the words stopped looking real. Lauren's recent decision to step back for personal reasons. My decision. Personal reasons. They had taken my father's business, locked me out, moved money under my name, and now they were smiling online like I had quietly chosen peace. The comments kept appearing. Lauren, are you okay? I just saw this. What happened? Your dad would be so proud of the bakery. Please tell us you're still involved. That last one broke me. I sat down at Sarah's tiny kitchen table and covered my mouth. Not because I wanted to cry, because a sound was trying to come out of me and I did not want it to scare her. Sarah stood beside me, frozen. What do we do? She asked. For the first time, I did not say I don't know. I wiped my face and looked at her. We tell the truth. Mr. Halpern did not want me posting angry details online. He said anything emotional could be twisted. He was right. Mark and Patricia were waiting for me to look unstable. So we wrote one careful statement. Not dramatic. Not messy. Just enough. I posted it from my personal page first. I have not stepped away from Miller's Kitchen. I am currently working with legal counsel regarding unauthorized changes to the business. Please do not rely on any announcements not made directly by me. Thank you for supporting the place my father built. My finger hovered over the button. Then I pressed post. For 3 minutes, nothing happened. Then my phone exploded. Customers shared it. Former employees shared it. My father's old friends shared it. A local food blogger who loved our holiday pies posted, "Something is wrong here. Lauren built that place." By noon, people were commenting on the bakery page. Where is Lauren? Why did Patricia post this? Who approved these changes? Mark called me 11 times. Patricia called 4. I answered neither. Then Mark texted. You just destroyed us publicly. I stared at the message. Destroyed us. Even then, he could not see what had already been destroyed. Mr. Halpern filed for emergency relief that afternoon. He asked the court to stop any sale, freeze disputed management changes, and preserve all business records. I did not understand every legal word, but I understood the center of it. We were pulling the brakes. Finally, the hearing was set for the next morning. That night, I went back to the bakery with Sarah and a police officer. I needed security footage from the night of the fake transfer. The officer stood near the door while I walked through the kitchen. Everything looked the same. The stainless steel tables. The flour bins. The old clock above the prep station. The framed photo of my father near the register was gone, and that empty spot hurt more than I expected. In the office, the computer had been wiped. Not fully, but enough. The browser history was gone. Recent files were gone. The desktop folder labeled Dad's records had disappeared. Sarah made a small sound behind me. They knew, she whispered. I nodded. But then I saw the old security monitor under the printer shelf. My father had installed cheap cameras years ago after a break-in. Mark always laughed at them. He said they were outdated and useless. He was wrong. The system still backed up to a small local drive behind the cabinet. Sarah got on her knees and pulled it out. The officer helped us plug it in. We searched the timestamp. Tuesday night, 8:47 p.m. The footage appeared grainy and colorless. There I was in the office, sitting at the desk. Alone. I was not transferring money. I was reviewing catering orders. Then, on another camera, the back door opened. Mark walked in. He had my keys. He went straight to the front counter computer and stayed there for almost 12 minutes. I stopped breathing. Sarah grabbed my arm. The officer leaned closer to the screen. Mark looked up once, toward the hallway, then continued typing. A minute later, he left through the back door. At 8:47 p.m., the exact time of the transfer. I did not cry. I did not speak. I just watched my husband become evidence. The next morning, Patricia arrived at court in a navy suit. Mark stood beside her, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. He tried to catch my eye, but I looked past him. Mr. Halpern presented the filings. The storage unit photos. Patricia's voicemail. Sarah's emails. The Facebook post. The bank recovery changes. Then he played the security footage. The room went very still. Mark's lawyer asked for a private discussion. The judge did not look amused. By lunchtime, the emergency order was granted. The sale was temporarily blocked. Business records had to be preserved. Patricia could not make further management changes without court approval. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. But only halfway. Because outside the courthouse, Mark finally walked up to me. His face was gray. "Lauren," he said quietly. "You don't understand. She has something on me." I looked at him. For 1 second, the old reflex returned. Concern. Then I crushed it. "What does she have?" He looked back at Patricia, standing near the courthouse steps. Then he leaned closer and whispered something that made my blood turn cold. "The debt wasn't from the auto shop. The debt wasn't from the auto shop." For a second, I thought I had misheard him. The courthouse steps were crowded behind us. Lawyers passed by with briefcases. A woman laughed into her phone. Cars moved through downtown traffic like nothing in my life had just split open. I stared at Mark. "What are you talking about?" He swallowed hard. "The auto shop was real," he said. "But it wasn't the reason I owed money." I felt my hands go cold. "Then what was?" He looked toward Patricia again. She was watching us. Not nervously. Like a guard watching a prisoner. Mark lowered his voice. "I borrowed money from her first." "From your mother?" He nodded. "For what?" His eyes filled with something that looked like shame, but I no longer trusted his face. "I had another life, Lauren." Those words landed slowly. Not all at once. They entered me like cold water. Another life. I waited for him to explain, because my mind refused to help him. "There was a woman," he said. "Vanessa. It ended before you found out." I almost laughed. Before I found out. As if the ending made the betrayal smaller. "She had an apartment in Dublin," he continued. "I helped pay for it. I used credit cards. Then loans. Then money from Mom." My body felt strangely still. All those late deliveries. All those client meetings. All those weekends when he said he was helping his friend. It had not been business. It had been a secret life. "And your mother knew?" I asked. Mark closed his eyes. "She found out. Then she said she would fix everything." I looked past him at Patricia. Suddenly, her calm made sense. She had not been protecting her son from ruin. She had been buying power over him. And he had paid her back with my father's business. The next few minutes blurred. "Mr. Halpern saw my face and came over. I told him what Mark had said, right there on the sidewalk. Mark tried to back away from it at first, but the damage was done. His own fear had cracked him open. 3 days later, with lawyers present, Mark gave a formal statement. He admitted the auto shop debt was only part of the story. He admitted Patricia had pushed him to use my business as leverage. He admitted he changed account recovery information. He admitted he made the transfer under my login. He said Patricia told him it would force me to sign. Patricia denied everything. Of course she did. She called him confused, emotional, desperate. The same words she had tried to use against me. But this time, people were listening. The bank froze the disputed funds. The buyer backed away from the sale. Patricia's lawyer suddenly wanted to negotiate. Not because she was sorry. Because her perfect plan had become ugly in daylight. I did not get everything back quickly. That part matters. People think the truth fixes things the second it appears. It does not. Truth opens the door, but you still have to walk through the mess. For months, I lived between lawyers, bank calls, court dates, and bakery shifts. I changed every password, rebuilt every vendor account, sat with employees and explained only what they needed to know. Some stayed, some left. I understood both. Sarah stayed. She became more than my manager after that. She became the person who reminded me to eat when I forgot. The person who stood beside me when customers asked careful questions. The person who helped hang my father's photo back near the register. The day we put it back, I cried in the empty dining room. Not loudly. Just enough to finally release what I had been carrying. The legal settlement came almost 8 months later. Patricia gave up all management claims. Mark signed back every interest connected to Miller's Kitchen. The fraudulent transfer was reversed after the bank investigation. Patricia never admitted wrongdoing, but she signed the papers with a face like stone. Mark and I divorced before spring. He cried in the mediation room. He said he loved me. Maybe part of him did. But I had learned something painful by then. Love without honesty can still destroy you. And pity is not a reason to hand someone your future. I kept the bakery. Not because it was easy. Because it was mine. The first morning I unlocked the front door with my father's brass key again. I stood outside for a long time. The sun had barely come up. The street was quiet. The sign still said Miller's Kitchen, but it looked different to me now. Not safer. Not untouched. But alive. I opened the door, turned on the lights, and smelled cinnamon in the dark kitchen. For the first time in almost a year, I did not feel like I was walking into a battlefield. I felt like I was coming home. And sometimes, even now, I think about the woman I was at that lawyer's office. The woman who signed because her husband sounded afraid. The woman who believed sacrifice was proof of love. I do not hate her. She was trying to save a marriage. She just did not understand that some people will let you burn your whole life down to keep them warm. A few weeks after the divorce, an envelope arrived at the bakery. No return address. Inside was a copy of an old photo. Me, my father, and the first tray of cinnamon rolls we ever sold. On the back, someone had written one sentence. He knew you would take it back. I never found out who sent it. But I kept it beside the register. Right under my father's photo. Because some things should never be handed away. Not for fear. Not for guilt. And not for someone who only loves you when you are useful. Thank you for listening to this story until the end. Sometimes the most painful betrayal does not come from strangers, but from the people we trusted with our life, our home, and our future. And if this story made you think, do not ignore that feeling. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss more life stories about betrayal, money, family secrets, and choices that change everything. Leave a like if this story touched you. And write in the comments. Would you forgive someone who used your trust to take something that belonged to your family? I truly want to read your thoughts.